solve
It's
the
true.
problem, you will succeed. If you don't, you'll fail.
I would add consistently, because you solve a problem for now, you abandon this dashboard. In a year, you forget you ever did it.
Welcome to the Data Nerd Podcast. I'm your host, Nisar Ahmed. Join me as we explore the inner data nerd inside all of us. Dive into the world of data alongside special guests who not only share their wealth of experience and knowledge, but also unveil what truly makes them data nerds. This podcast is brought to you by Business Intelligence. That's BIZNIS Intelligence. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Business Intelligence to stay up to date with Tableau training and the Data Nerd podcast. Connect with me on LinkedIn or stream the Data Nerd podcast across all major podcast platforms. Today, I'm joined by Igor Garlowski, a seasoned data expert and Tableau Ambassador as well, who helps the leading tech and ed tech companies make smarter data-driven decisions. Igor's impressive portfolio includes work with top-tier organizations like McKinsey, Siemens, Pfizer, and NHS. With deep expertise across data visualization, data engineering, architecture, and strategy, he brings a holistic view of what it takes to turn data into impact. So, Igor, welcome to the Data Nerd podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Nisar. Wow, this is a proper announcement. I never got it before.
Well, was it good? Did I miss anything?
Amazing. Oh my God. I would literally cut it out and put it on my LinkedIn.
Well, you know how I came up with it.
How?
Everything.
Was it ChatGPT?
Yeah. I asked ChatGPT to give me your intro.
Oh my God. Am I actually known to the AI?
Listen, AI knows everything, right?
It really does these days. It's true.
But here's the thing, AI will give you things, but obviously, so it didn't give it to me like that. I did have to still prompt a little bit and change it and edit and make it myself. And I think that's part of using it properly as well.
Yes, it still saves a lot of time, doesn't it?
Oh, 100% saves a lot of time. I think it's a tool that will help you do your job, not replace your job.
I absolutely agree. Well, so you could say about computers, back days, people were really scared of them, right? They'll replace so many jobs. They also gave a lot of jobs.
That's true. Or when the internet came out, people were scared of like, is it going to take away a lot of jobs? But we wouldn't have our job. We wouldn't be doing this right now if it wasn't for the internet.
Absolutely.
Right?
Every innovation takes some jobs and brings new ones. It's amazing.
Yeah, you just have to learn to adapt and not learn to change. And you know what? This kind of ties into our topic that we're going to talk about, right? We want to talk about why data teams fail to deliver. And this whole adopting to change is probably one of the reasons why they may fail, is they don't adopt to those changes. And we'll get into that. But before we start, I want to ask you initial question, which is, and this being the Data Nerd podcast, I ask everyone if you're a data nerd. And if so, tell me a time when you realized you were a data nerd.
Well, honestly, I think we are all data nerds in this industry, right? Otherwise, how would you force yourself to spend those hundreds of hours? When did I realize it? Well, I remember some of the people that you interviewed were giving you in specific dates. I don't have such a moment. It's more of a feeling of, you know how you're having with your friends different discussions, how you're meeting people and we all claim different things. I tended often to say, look, how about we'll check it? How about I'll dig some data? How about we'll actually know the truth? So I was just doing it for fun. I was just, looking into data, which people don't. And one thing to another, I always wanted to help businesses do better what they do, whatever they will be. That was my childhood dream. I just connected 1 + 1 and I ended up in business intelligence. I like data. I like that it presents often the truth and it helps people do better what they do. So yeah, that was my moment.
I mean, that's the perfect recipe for somebody who's meant to be in this field, right? And so business intelligence is what you focus on. And I know I saw you, we met at Tableau conference. How many conferences have you been to? Tableau.
That was the first main one in US. I've been also before in London. How about you?
Okay. This was probably my seventh one. I try
Wow.
to go.
Okay.
I try to go every year if I can. I love it. I mean, how did you like it? What was your experience like?
That was the closest to an adult camp for nerds that I can imagine myself. This is like back to being 14 years old. We just went with new people and had a ton of fun. This is it. Like I'm from day one, I'm already planning with Prasan and the rest of the guys. Let's go after the conference to the forest. Let's rent a cabin and let's just continue the childhood dream of, but now it's different. Now we have topics and we have money. This is
And
perfect.
that's true. And also you're an ambassador as well, right? And
Yeah.
going into the conference as a Tableau ambassador is a different experience. And I'll tell you that because this was also my first time going as an ambassador, whereas previously I was not ambassador, and the experience is much different. The people you meet, the connections you make, it's great.
Yeah, it feels like red carpet, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, we were literally escorted to the front rows for the main keynotes because we're ambassadors, right? So, I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm grateful that I had this opportunity to
Gorgeous,
be a
Vivian.
Apple ambassador. I'm sure you
What,
feel
ab-
the same way.
what about the moment when the CEO asked all the ambassadors to get up? That was one of the top moments in my life when thousands of people were clapping.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of puts everything into perspective, and you realize, oh, um, sometimes you don't think about what you've accomplished up to this date, but in that moment, you're like, you know what, uh, maybe I did something good.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. Although, on the other hand, the imposter syndrome is kicking hard.
It does, 100%. I feel it too. I feel it too. I think it's a natural feeling. Here's the thing: if you didn't have imposter syndrome, I think you'd be a different type of person. Then you'd feel like, oh, I deserve this. I need this. I should be in it. And
Yeah,
that gives off a different vibe. I think having some humility and imposter syndrome is actually a good thing.
a bit less. I think, at least in me, I think it should be a bit balanced. Like I know what you're saying. You don't
Yeah.
want to be arrogant, but
Yeah.
also some people, including me, we are like literally not believing where we are. And
Listen, it happens. It happens. Next year, maybe it'll be a little less, right?
maybe
Will you come next year, San Diego?
forever and ever.
Good. I'm looking forward to seeing you again and other fellow ambassadors as well. Um, but let's talk about our topic, right? And so we were discussing, topics that we should talk about on the podcast, and you brought up this topic about why data teams fail to deliver, and I thought this was a great topic because oftentimes we talk about what we should do as data teams and best practices and how to do things, but what's the impact? How do people what happens? Not everybody's successful. And how do you learn from the failures? And so talk about your experiences here. Like what do you deal with clients, companies, or people you work with that maybe tend to fail? And what are some things that you can take away from that? Or how do you prevent that from happening?
Well, to be honest, the topic is really complicated. As you know, you're also working with many clients, right? And what's very interesting for me is that there's no silver bullet to it. You would think that moving between different clients as a consultant, you will sooner or later figure out a template. Then you will just keep applying the template and now everything is working. But realistically, every company is a sum of the people and the culture, right? And it's the data culture. It's also the company culture itself. So applying the same template to the next one might not work. Most likely won't. Most likely it won't work in the same company in 2 years or 2 years ago, because it's all changing. Why are they really failing? If I could boil it down to one simple thing, I would say this is lack of ownership, at least from my experience. It's a lack of ownership because it's such a broad thing to say. For example, are you maintaining it? Do you know the stakeholders? Do you know what they really want? Because let me ask you back. Would you prefer to deliver 50 dashboards to your clients or just one, knowing that you'll keep maintaining this one and you will know that they will be using it and it's answering not all of the questions, but some of them?
So it depends. If when you asked me this question, if this was earlier on in my experience, I would have said 50. Now I would say 1. Because I think before I was thinking, oh, I want to prove myself. I want to see how much I can do and how much I can produce out there. And you start rolling out dashboards, but then really only a handful of them are being used. Now I'd rather create one impactful dashboard that is useful and people would use.
Exactly. Let's compare it to art. Is it better to produce in your whole lifetime one painting that will hang in a museum, people will love it, or 1,000 that will be forever in a basement? That's kind of what we do in the end of the day, right? People come to a specific place, they look at it, and they get something out of that product, something that hopefully drives the bottom line of their company.
So let me ask you this. How do you get to a place where you're producing that one impactful dashboard instead of the 50? Is your approach different? Do you take more time? Like, what's the secret sauce? What's the secret ingredient to get that done? Because when I'm producing the 50 dashboards, I think that I'm building something that people will use, but it's only after the fact that you realize it's not being used. How do you put yourself in a position to ensure that you're building for the stakeholders is actually going to get used?
I don't think you can ever know it from the beginning, right? But one of the things that I'm trying to do is to iterate, is to come back to the dashboard, is to push back the client from, okay, I know we have all this backlog and everything is important. All right. Can we do MVPs on those? See, are people using it? And let's go back to this core dashboard that you hired us for. Are you using it? And now, as you know from the Tableau conference, we'll have more insights into what is being used and how people are using it. We'll be able to figure out what kind of filters they're using on our dashboards, and a lot of nice insights that before were either not available or we had to do those custom dashboards based on the Postgres in the backend, right? I think this will be actually core of the future work of us going back and, well, eating the meal that we have cooked, being an analyst on our own product. This is, I think, something that is missing from the industry. It's more like we are baking tons of bread, just quickly delivering more and more and more and more, and not having the time to come back because of the time pressure. But I think this is one of the reasons the clients are paying for the consultants, because you come in and you say, A, it depends. B, take a second. Tell me about it. Give me the context. Don't rush me.
Yeah, so you need that context, right? You need to understand here. I think you need to understand what problem they're trying to solve before you start putting the work in. And you need to make sure that you're aligned to always trying to solve that problem so that people will use it, right? If I come to you and say, like, my problem is that I don't have enough sales for a particular product. I don't know why. And then you start building me a dashboard on all of my products and don't focus on that one product. It's not really solving my problem, right?
Exactly. I think you get a really good idea here about sales, because this is exactly what I do in sales. Imagine you're going to a doctor and you're entering the office and the doctor is just opening the jacket and like, hey mate, I have all those drugs. What do you want? Those are on a discount. I can do them in 5 hours for you. No, you would like to go to a doctor, spend there 30 minutes, an hour, 2, and for the doctor to really understand your point of view, understand you, your body, your problem, and then give you maybe even nothing, maybe a small advice. One pill will be enough. This is what I think many analysts and consultants don't understand. The goal is not 500 dashboards. The goal, if I could magically give you one KPI, then wouldn't you be happy? A KPI that solves everything. I'm a magician. Well, that would be better than 500 dashboards.
Yeah. Going back to your example, when you go to the doctor, right? What do they do when you first go in? You have an intake form, put in information. What do you like? Your medical history, issues you may have, other things that that the doctor may need to know for the context. When you go in, they ask you questions. You try to figure out what the issue is, because not everybody's the same. And so in a similar fashion, when you're working with dashboards, it's the same type of process, is it not? Like the way you would design a dashboard for one client will be different than another, because they both have different problems, different issues, different different variables, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's pick an example. You work on GitHub data. One client will need it refreshed every month on some basic level. You maybe don't even have to do much work to it. Another client needs it near real time. Because if something breaks, if something is wrong, then maybe people die. You don't know. Like every industry, it depends so much. And we have legislation. You have so much context to it. And that's one of the reasons it's so important to hire the right people. Because in this industry, it's so hard to discover, and Tableau has no proper CI/CD pipeline very often. It's so hard to discover if something's not done properly. And then you just have quantity being pushed in without the connection to the stakeholder and the context. And in the end, you have no ownership. So yeah, what kind of impact are you delivering from this? Do you trust this data? Do your stakeholders trust this data? They don't know you. They don't know the data. They don't know that even Tableau. Right?
Yeah, that's true. I think what happens though, and the reason why these situations arise where you have 50 dashboards out there that are not being used, is because the stakeholders request to get those dashboards created. They're like, I want this dashboard, can you build it for me? And you just say, okay, I'll do it. And you build it and reproduce it, and here you go. And I don't think they know what they want. They just ask for it, and I think you get stuck in this trap where you just produce everything that's asked, and there's no strategy, right? I think you need some type of overall vision and strategy from a data enablement or data training. I don't know. Do you think there's some type of center of excellence or centralized area of a business that needs to be established, so that everybody's on that same path and working towards that same objective, so we don't get stuck in this situation where we have all of these tools and dashboards that are not being used?
I think it's a very interesting question, right? Because here you are basically asking centralization versus decentralization.
Mm-hmm.
And we can speak about, for example, data mesh, how all of the data products are being either standardized to some extent, or maybe at least the fundamentals, the architecture is being shared, or maybe everybody should be doing something on their own, just running around. And again, it really depends from company to company. This is why techniques like data mesh, they are being not really, there are no strict rules to it, more like guidelines. So what should companies really do? Well, one thing that Tableau, for example, says is to look into your data literacy. Because you can establish all the center of excellence. You can have templates. You can have less strict rules or more strict. You can have all the schemas and databases being done the same, and Tableau dashboards looking exactly the same way. Or everybody's doing something on their own, but if your stakeholders don't really have any data literacy, and the analysts don't, and statistics say that I think about 20% of CEOs say that their organizations are properly ready. They are really data literate. So what about the other 80%? what's happening in those companies. They are probably also data-driven. So I think all of this is really contributing to the lack of impact because, again, if I gave you the same tool like I'm giving it to somebody who's never seen computer before, what will be the difference of the impact? You can give the best tool to people who are not ready, and it will not drive an impact. So I think here we can also speak about the enablement. But yes, center of excellence is also important, assuming that you're already there. I just feel, I don't know, do you agree? I feel like this is a next level for many companies and they are still crawling at the bottom.
Yeah, I agree. I think you need to start with some sort of training first for everyone, like you have these tools. Is the training about how to use them or about, you talk about being data driven, how people divide or like two people may both say that they're, or two organizations may both say that they're a data driven organization, but they may not even know what, right? So what does it mean to be data driven?
Yeah. Well, I guess for everybody it means something slightly different, but making, like I mentioned in the beginning, why am I a data nerd? Well, the decisions, at least in business, at least when you're making them on multi-million dollar, projects, they should be driven by data. That could be the simplest thing that you could say being data driven. It's not about making every single decisions being data driven, right? Or maybe it is. There are buildings, there are companies that are driven by AI, computers, algorithms, and budgets are being improved that way. But I think for majority of companies, it's not really possible to go that granular, to go to that level of automation. To me, being data-driven as an organization means that when we're sitting down, for example, a very good example for me is marketing. Both you and me, you and I, we're doing a lot of marketing, right? It's LinkedIn, it's all this stuff. In the end of the day, do you sit there and think, I will change my brand color to purple, yellow? Why not? Or do you go and you do some research? Or do you do A/B split testing? Like you can go so many levels deeper and deeper. Yeah. Now, many organizations shouldn't go to the most granular level about every decision because they will just go upside down, right? They won't have enough of money. But a lot of organizations these days, I just received a message that a big British company is going for a 150 million BI project. Great, I'm thinking. I wonder what kind of knowledge they have about it. Are they just throwing money? They will create this beautiful architecture, security, everything will be just polished with people who don't know how to drive a car, who don't know how to open this stuff and properly use it. What's your experience? How is it working with your clients? Are they data driven?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not in consulting, right? I don't have clients necessarily. So I work in an organization, right? But I think it's a similar parallel, whether you're working with clients or you're working internally with internal stakeholders, you have the same issues, right? So I've worked on projects or departments where you have tons of dashboards out there because they're being produced based on requests, or somebody has like an Excel spreadsheet and they don't want to do it manually. They're like, build this in Tableau so then I can have it automated. I don't know if that's the best use case of Tableau, right? Like it's not meant to to replace an Excel spreadsheet just because you can automate it. There's much more to it than that. And so what I've learned from my experience is if somebody comes to me and says, okay, I have this Excel spreadsheet, can you put this in Tableau? You ask the question, like, what are you trying to get from this spreadsheet? What's your goal? What's your outcome? And then you try to think about ways that you can design the Tableau dashboard to solve that problem rather than just take what they have and put it into a different tool. That shift in mindset is, I think, what you're talking about in order to build impactful dashboards and solve problems, is asking the questions about like what the purpose is rather than just doing what was asked from or what was asked of you.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm holding right now a tiny remote for light. Look at the design. It's
Yeah.
simple. It does on and off, right? For two different
Yes.
lights.
Yes.
This could be a massive remote that will be also controlling my car and the pizza delivery due downstairs. It's not.
Yeah.
I think that this is what we learned during recent years, right? UI and UX. This is what Apple was showing. You don't need 500 buttons. Look at this. It can look sleek and still does the job probably even better.
Mm-hmm.
We have one button. It does sync with other of your devices, making your life easier. That's in the end what we want, right? I think many people don't realize that in the end of the day, stakeholders, they don't even want insights, to be honest. They want to have easier life. That's what everybody does. Majority of stakeholders, then we have senior ones. Do they really want to improve the bottom line of the company? Do they want to improve their bonus at the end of the year? The KPIs are controlling them. Whatever are the KPIs, they just want to have less work and more money. That's what majority humans do. And this is what many dashboards are not really selling. Many dashboards are selling such complicated insights that I'm going to a dashboard of another analyst and I'm sitting there and reading the documentation because I have no idea what is it doing, where's the data coming from, what am I supposed to do with this stuff. The tool can do everything. I'm just going to a database and writing a SQL query in the end of the day because I just cannot be bothered to use it.
That's true, right? Like, but when you, if I give you a dashboard and I put like everything on there, is it really helping you? Because now you don't even know what to look at.
And we are the experts on Tableau, right? So imagine yourself somebody who's barely knowing where to click in this tool.
Yeah, exactly. Especially somebody who doesn't even know how to use the tool, right? So me as a Tableau expert, I need to figure out what it is you as the client or stakeholder need and only give you what you need. I'm not going to give you everything. Like you talked about that remote example, right? Like that's a perfect example. You have one button on there because that's all you need. You look at the universal remotes. How many buttons are on there? But how many are actually used? No, it's actually more confusing than anything. And I have those universal remotes. When I have to like do something on it, I have to look through. I'm like, oh man, where is the button that I never figure out?
Yeah, this is it. And then you're adding on top of this customization. Make custom nice stuff on this dashboard. Make it even more complicated. Make sure that nobody can maintain this besides you because it's getting so bananas. And you've seen it. So going back to the topic, what kind of impact is this driving? Are they coming back? When you go into the views, are you just having a bunch of unique views on your dashboard and because nobody comes back because they just don't have time to put half an hour or 45 minutes to learn it?
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point, right? It's about the design. The design like I look at our role in dashboard design or data visualization. There's a whole technical component to it, no doubt. But the UX design, the art, is just as important, right? Because if you don't design it the right way, it's not about looking pretty or like it's not about like people saying, "Oh wow, that looks nice." It's functional art. It's purposeful. It's designed that way so that it makes it easier. What's the reason we're building dashboards? It's because people can't necessarily understand the raw data, and we need to translate that. And how do you translate that? You translate that using design and art because people are more visual. When they look at numbers, they don't know what it means, and so you need to design it in a way that provides that story.
Absolutely. I mean, if not, then why not just use Excel? Because if people, you mentioned before that a lot of people are using it as an Excel because Tableau is automated. All right. You can also automate Excel. Why not do that? It will be infinitely cheaper, right? Make it in Google Sheets, add 3 add-ins, and why even bothering with Tableau and stuff? Well, you're bothering because it's hard to read a lot of data on a daily basis. Because we're simplifying it because hundreds of people saving tens of hours each over the years just add up. So it's cheaper to make it better. That's at least how I see it. But going to UI and UX, I think it's a very underrated part of our work. how often do you see on LinkedIn people really sharing some really good insights about UI and UX, perhaps from other industry? Like you have the, what is it, 70-20-10 color rule from cinematography. How you're supposed to be adding
Talk
colors.
about that.
Yeah, like people don't really speak about it. I recently heard about it. So this is one of the, I think, already old theories that 70% of the whole screen should be single color. Look right now at my area. About 70% is gray and white.
Yes.
Then about 20% will be some kind of color. I think I'm doing it wrong here. I think I should take off my t-shirt. Then I'm going to be 20% skin.
Well, the red is, I would say it's about 20% of this, of your view.
Right. And then you have the remaining 10% to highlight something. So now think about the dashboard. You're making 70% grayish. Then you make 20% in a color that is quite important. Pay attention to this. And with 5 to 10%, let's say you make it coral red. This, pay attention. This is bad. This is actionable.
Yeah.
Simple things. The ink ratio. How many people speak about the ink ratio? I think now it finally becomes quite popular, but junior analysts will not know. Ink ratio, less font, less stuff, more free space. If you have something everywhere, then you have nothing. Because again, I always say to junior analysts, look, our job is to make somebody's job easier. You cannot expect a business user to become an analyst. It's your job. It's your job to give somebody something that is trustworthy and easy to use and fits the purpose. That's all there is. Would you like to enter a car that looks inside like a plane? Jesus Christ. Yes, it can do everything, but wow, I would just leave immediately. I would be scared.
Yeah. I mean, we can spend a whole podcast talking about best practices in design, but you bring up a great point at 70-20-10 rule, right? I think that's something I do that myself. I just didn't know that it was formalized in that 70-20-10. But I always try to have the, those neutral colors, and you could still make it branded. You could still brand it to the color schemes of your company, right? And so there's always flexibility there. Doesn't mean that all dashboards have to look the same.
Absolutely. Although, so how do you do it? Well, you say you work in one organization. Do you keep them looking rather the same, or do you change it a lot?
Yeah, here's the thing. I think people like consistency, and when they go to dashboards, they like things to look similar because they get used to a certain way. They don't want to open one dashboard or another and then have to learn, kind of get used to different ones. So I do like to follow a certain template, but that's for the same stakeholder, for the same users base. When they get used to a certain style, you keep that same style because we know that works for them. And there's no need to change because it's already branded for them. That's typically how I go about it. What do you think? What's your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree. I would compare it to, I'm imagining myself a big book, which is the whole company. And if every single page would be in a different color, I would throw it away. I would be raging on it. Like, wow, different font, different, everything is different. You wouldn't be able to focus for 5 seconds. But if every larger chapter would be different and it would fit the team, perhaps it would be pretty good. If everything would be the same in some weird color or weird font, probably I wouldn't like it. I don't know, is a book a good idea here because we like it black and white, but I think you get the point. Right now I'm working on a specific stack of data with GitHub. Everything that I'm doing looks very similar because all the stakeholders are from the same bigger group, and I want to highlight that this is one project, this is one group of work, this is not different. But if I'll be right now moved to something else and I'll be start working on profit for the CEO, it will not be the same. Yeah. I will do that whole exec dashboards again together as a cluster, even if they're different workbooks. So I think we are thinking similarly.
You have to be mindful of who you're doing this for, right? The way you design dashboards for executives is going to be completely different than designing it for a business analyst.
Yeah, exec versus operations.
Yeah,
definitely different.
Sure. Yeah, you bring up great points. And I think a lot of it also comes down to like you said. So we talked about training, right? Um, Having some type of I don't know, center of excellence slash a vision, data strategy,
Enablement.
enablement,
Yeah.
and design, UX, uh, customization as well. But also, I think if I were to summarize why data teams fail to deliver, it would be because they don't solve the problems.
I agree. I
If you
agree.
can
That
solve
is
the
true.
problem, you will succeed. If you don't, you'll fail.
I would add consistently, because you solve a problem for now, you abandon this dashboard. In a year, you forget you ever did it. And this is going back to the ownership. Too many analysts, too many teams think that they work in a retail business when just sending ton of this stuff into the wall, something will be sticking for a while and it's good enough. When in reality, if you have, for example, a sales representative, would you prefer them to have 1 million clients or just a couple of them and nourish them, come back to them? That's something I was arguing. I was trying to explain during my presentation at Tableau conference, that how many of you are having reminders in your email, in your calendar every 3 or 6 months, go and pretend you are a user. Go and check the performance. Go and check, is this solving the issues? Go and ask some business questions. Maybe things have changed. Yeah. Because our stakeholders are often not coming back to us. And this is again the problem of ownership. Do I own this stuff? If you were to create Mona Lisa, you would own this stuff. You'll be standing there every day like, I did that. People are still coming. This is great.
Yes.
We don't do that with dashboards.
Have pride in your work, right? And
exactly.
Yeah.
Maintenance is not boring, especially if you do your work correctly. It's also encouraging to the analyst itself. Did you name your calculations properly? Is it all in folders? Is it documented? I mean, keep working on it here and there when you can. Push back the manager on this stuff. Go to the top 2 stakeholders who are clearly using it hundreds of times a year, because you can see it in your statistics. Go and ask them, hey, you are my top user. Thank you. Would you improve anything?
Yeah.
A lot of the users are introverts. Introverts don't go back to us. They don't explain this stuff.
That's true. Yeah. You have to take that initiative and be proactive. Yeah, 100%. Listen, the great topic, and a lot more that we can say about it. But I think it gives a good overview on on the issue itself, right? About data teams and how to succeed. Let's not talk about why they fail. Maybe let's shift the mindset, and we should talk about how to succeed, right? And but again, you learn from your failures, and that's what makes you better.
Very true. Yeah. So how do you succeed? Well, do your best.
Do your best, solve the problems, right?
Listen to more podcasts. Then you learn a lot of good insights.
Well, I hope our listeners here can get some takeaways from you here, and take that away to help do their jobs better. So that's the whole goal here. But listen, it's been great, but I want to end off with some rapid fire questions.
Go for it.
Okay. Most overrated chart type.
Overrated. Ooh. It's supposed to be rapid.
What comes to your mind right away? What's the first thing that you thought of?
Well, obviously the pie chart, right? But is it overrated? People complain about it. It depends who you ask. If you ask business users, they love it.
They love it, yeah. I like the donut chart over the pie chart.
Yes, I also like the sunburst. Quite complicated. I really like it. But yeah, donut, nice donut, thin one with a KPI in the middle.
Exactly.
I like it.
Exactly. I agree. Okay. What's your go-to chart when you're? What's your if you're in a rush? What's your go-to chart?
Lollipop.
Oh yeah, nice. That's not. I would. Most people, I think, would say bar, but interesting. You said lollipop.
That's one of the reasons I do Lollipop, because it's literally extra copy, dual sync, make it circle. Now you have a Lollipop. It looks a bit different.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like Excel. That's also something important to me. So yeah, extra 3 clicks.
I like it. I like it. Dark theme or light theme dashboards?
Like over the years, I tried to do dark also for my website. It's hard to pull it off right. You have to be a better designer than I am.
Yeah. There's something about the simplicity and the light and the white space. I think um, you brought up the example with Apple, right? Apple does that a lot. A lot of like white space and themes to keep simplicity.
Yeah, it's also about the ink ratio, right? Like it's just you can
Yeah.
fit more into the white one, and also right fonts. What I'm failing to play with is fonts. Any font on white looks okay. Not every font on black looks good. So now you have those extra things to think of.
I agree. I agree. One skill every data professional should learn.
Every day. How to learn. Learn quicker. Learn
Oh,
every
they
day
should
how to
learn how to
learn
learn.
quicker.
Yeah.
That's something school is not teaching you, which is very weird. Schools are not teaching you how to learn. They don't teaching you how to like learning or like reading. They teach you how to do that, but it doesn't mean you know how to do it in the end of the day quickly. You don't know how to read quickly, do you? Majority of people don't, or how to learn quickly.
Yeah.
So if you would focus for a year on learning how to learn, then the second year you could learn 5 years worth of knowledge. It's an investment.
That, and I'm gonna get off topic here a little bit, but like we were talking about AI, and using AI to help you do your job, right? AI, essentially, it's making you, I don't know, produce at a faster rate or do things faster if you're utilizing it properly, right? And I guess that's kind of in a similar type of comparable to, you want to learn how to learn so you can absorb more and absorb faster.
Absolutely. Also, a great way to learn quicker. Great way to learn how to learn.
Yeah.
You can now absorb so much more knowledge in such a condensed way. Look at learning languages. Look at learning Python. Hey, ChatGPT, how can I learn in a fun way Python using example of my favorite dog, Buggy? And you go for it and you're having fun.
Yeah.
What I really like, quick tip for AI, explain like to an 8-year-old. I use it for the most complicated questions about data engineering and architecture. And then instead of talking about VPCs and other stuff, you're like, VPC is illegal. When you have too many legal, it goes into this level of, okay, I don't need much brain power to get it.
I like that. I'm going to use that too. Yeah. Good. Okay. Favorite thing about the Tableau community?
Oh, favorite. Well, a year ago, I would say the way that we share together and we learn together. There is absolutely no limit. People don't keep secrets. I absolutely love it. It's such a comforting way to conjure your business and to learn things for your career. Right now, after Tableau conference, I'm like, no, people, screw all this stuff. I want to go back and have a beer with those folks and chat and laugh at geeky stuff,
Yeah. I agree. So, and last question. If you weren't working in data, what would you do?
I would be probably a traveling vlogger.
I love traveling. Yes, I agree.
I'm a digital nomad. I keep traveling all the time. Right now I'm in Spain. In 2 weeks, I'll be back in UK. So that's just what I do. Yeah.
That's great. And you have the flexibility to still work when you travel, right? And so you can do that.
Exactly. So right now I'm in a co-working space. In a second, I'm going to Thailand this year. That's, life becomes so much more rewarding.
Yeah.
I'm resting more. My mind is more rested. I'm less stressed. So I can deliver more to my clients. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, no, great. I love that. No, great way to end off. And thank you so much for joining the Data Nerd podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.